Hello everyone, this is Tim for presenting the analysis of sustainability practices of Saint Laurent. This presentation aims at analyzing the sustainability practices of YSL and providing the brand with feasible sustainability solutions based on the existing strategies. First of all, a brief walkthrough of the brand YSL. It is a French luxury brand currently owned by the Kering Group, a global luxury corporation promoting modern and sustainable high-end fashion. As YSL continues to grow and expand, the brand is facing a variety of new challenges raised by changing consumer behaviors and societal issues, especially when it shifts its target to younger generation of consumers who have increasing concerns about ethical issues related to the fashion industry. Regarding the sustainability, YSL has done some practices in promoting its idea, work today for a better tomorrow. However, many of YSL's shortcomings come from their supply chain map, showing their lack of traceability and transparency, suggesting a need of big improvement to get cultural relevance and attract young consumers.
As an international luxury brand, Yves Saint Laurent has two significant developments over the past 3 years. First, Yves Saint Laurent has shifted its focus from Western countries to Eastern countries as the Eastern countries, especially China, have dealt well with COVID-19 and developed rapidly in the last 3 years. Saint Laurent's post-pandemic China strategies under Valentina, including strengthening the culturally driven communication strategies, present their interest and ambitions on the Chinese market. The recent number of selling products in Asian market helped Saint Laurent deal with COVID-19 situation. Therefore, Saint Laurent become 30% of the group sales in the current house and surged 45% in the first 9 months of 2021. Another critical development is that Yves Saint Laurent added colors in their products to attract a broad audience. Using less black and white and adding more colors is a unique method to create more diversity to their market and consumers. The current CEO of Saint Laurent is Francesca Valentina, but Saint Laurent is a company bought by Kering Group, which owns a luxury brand promoting luxury clothing. The global revenue for Yves Saint Laurent is about 1,744.4 million euros in 2020, which is the second best profiting product of Kering Group. Although the headquarters of Saint Laurent is located in Paris, France, there will be 239 stores worldwide in 2021, include 47 stores in Western Europe, 47 stores in North America, 32 stores in Japan, and 130 stores in emerging countries. 565 employees work for Saint Laurent. However, Saint Laurent does not stratify for the current profit, so they have already planned for the future company growth. The shared vision for growing Saint Laurent is to grow sales by diversify the product offering and capitalizing on such Yves Saint Laurent icons as pantsuit, safari jacket, and yes, even logo. Saint Laurent wants to create a modern wardrobe for the people since Mr. Saint Laurent wants to do it in the second half of 20th century. For financial, Yves Saint Laurent thinks growing profit in China since they have an optimistic view for the Chinese market and their customers. They want to promote sales strategies in a current China store, select enlargement, new openings, and online. Also, there are some key strategies that Saint Laurent would use in the future. Yves Saint Laurent would in his price lower than Prada, Balenciaga, and Louis Vuitton to sell more products. Yves Saint Laurent would try to target the younger generation instead of targeting the original customer.
According to our sustainability assessment, YSL scored C+, while Gucci earned a grade of B- and Prada an E+. Overall, YSL gained similar scores to Gucci, considering their influence on the planet. However, it still needed to improve on transparency and workers' rights. Compared to YSL and Gucci, Prada was performing much more poorly, still having a long way to go on sustainability. Regarding transparency and workers' rights, while Gucci was ranked as C, YSL was ranked as D for both indicators, which means the brand still had a big space to improve on. In the Fashion Transparency Index 2021, YSL scored 43%, while Gucci scored 56% and Prada 18%. While Gucci released much information about its suppliers and have most of them certified by Social Accountability International to protect workers' rights, YSL and Prada barely disclose their suppliers' information. Also, most of the final stage production for YSL is undertaken in Italy, a country implying possibility of unfair labor treatments, and neither did YSL publish evidence to ensure the payment of a living wage in the supply chain. Therefore, YSL and Prada got lower grades than Gucci in this section. When shifting attention to emissions, water, and chemicals, both YSL and Gucci earn the same grade as B to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from their supply chain. They both set a science-based target to keep on track. These two brands also established policies approved by Canopy Style to ensure the protection of ancient and endangered forests from their supply chain. They also took moves to lower the hazardous chemicals in their production. However, Prada does not establish any policies on regulating the emissions, water usage, or chemicals, and therefore got a grade as E. On materials and waste section, both YSL and Gucci got a C for materials and B for waste. They both apply eco-friendly materials in their products, such as organic cotton and semi-synthetic regenerative fibers, but in small proportion though. The fact is that YSL, Gucci, and Prada as luxury brands still use abundance of leather, exotic animal fur or skin, and other animal materials, so resulting them in low grades. As regards to waste, both YSL and Gucci got B, meaning they've made good progress. Both brands have started to collect and recycle leather and textile leftovers during the manufacturing process to maximize their value. However, Prada has no evidence showing that it minimized the textile waste, so got an E at the end. Therefore, from this assessment, it is evidence that YSL has applied some strategies to achieve a more sustainable business model, but still in the beginning phase.
The standard supply chain begins with the farming of plants and animals for fiber production, which in turn brings us to cultivation of these plants for fibers, or the harvesting of hides, fur, or wool from animals. Once the fibers are harvested and processed, they are then spun into yarns to be woven or knit into fabrics. For man-made fibers, the chemicals are processed and spun out to create filament fibers. Then we move on to garment production. This has many subcategories depending on the garment or the season. For YSL, where more of the production happens in Italy, skilled workers will cut, sew, and possibly finish the products. In finishing, the garment may be passed from one factory to another, sometimes shipped from France to India for YSL specifically, in order to have embroidery of an haute couture garment completed. Finally, YSL ships their garments to China to be packaged and shipped to warehouses for distribution. While this is a very generalized supply chain, this is due to the lack of YSL-specific information that is accessible to consumers. By being a Kering Group member, YSL does not need to provide their own detailed information on their supply chain, as Kering has released their Raw Materials and Manufacturing Processes report. While this report highlights some key initiatives such as their Pact for 100% traceability, specific codes for ethics and workers' rights, restricted substances lists, and their Clean by Design initiative, it is laden with industry jargon, lengthy, and features few concrete details on the supply chain. Because of this, the supply chain keeps the consumer in the dark. Some information we found that is YSL specific is the countries where production and raw materials cultivation is found. Predominantly, most products and raw materials are sourced from Italy at 94%, while France and Spain share a 3% stakehold in production, and Eastern Europe, again undefined, makes up only 2%. Finally, the finishing of things such as embroidery are done in India, completing the last 1%. This brings us to the problem identification for YSL, starting with transparency in the supply chain, workers' rights, and finishing with the use of unsustainable materials. Transparency is YSL's main pain point when discussing their sustainable practices. While the Kering Group has an overall report for their standards and suppliers, there is almost no YSL-specific information to be found. Without an independent, transparent supply chain, it can be difficult to hold YSL accountable for their production and manufacturing standards. This leaves the consumer in the dark about brand-specific practices, which also tarnishes YSL's stance on sustainability. Next, YSL's workers' rights are one of the lowest ranking grades in their sustainability report. It has been highly publicized in the past that their suppliers and sub-suppliers often have poor working conditions for garment workers, as discussed by a New York Times article. This directly violates the Kering Group's claim of upholding a code of ethics and rights from their raw materials and manufacturing processes report. Again, due to the lack of transparency, it is hard to know what exactly is happening in their factories that are YSL specific and what conditions are being forced upon workers. And finally, YSL is known for using leathers and furs amongst other unsustainable materials. Although there is a stance to cut out furs in the near future, there is little to be said about the amount of leather that is used or a reach for any other eco-conscious changes in fabrics. It is mentioned that as of 2020, YSL has cut out the use of harsh chemicals and metals used in its tanning processes, but this only accounts for 32% of their leathers. Here again, the Kering Group report highlights attempting to be 100% traceable for fibers and hides, as well as maintaining animal welfare. But with many suppliers and sub-suppliers that are not being disclosed, these standards may not be followed through in order to cut down costs.
From here on, we will discuss and provide our recommendations strategized based on our research and founded evidence for YSL to intake and further their sustainability initiatives. YSL has built a loyal customer base, but with Generation Z expected to be the largest consumer group in most luxury markets by 2030, who are primarily seeking sustainability in their purchases as well as other social issues. If YSL does not catch on to this demographic successfully, there will likely be a disrupt in their revenue. Transparency is certainly absent, particularly when it comes to sourcing and the supply chain as a whole. Brands should disclose their positions on environmental and social concerns, according to Gen Z consumers. YSL, along with Kering's other holding brands, will discontinue using animal fur by the fall of 2022. This is a step in the right direction, but not far enough to remain as Kering's second most profitable luxury brand when their competitors are already ahead. YSL should disclose their suppliers not just in the second and final stages, but also in the first stages so that consumers can see where the raw materials are coming from. The Kering Standards for Raw Materials and Manufacturing Processes is a document that is excessively broad and lacking in specifics. From sourcing to manufacturing to supplying, each of the Kering Group's brands function differently. With that being said, if consumers want transparency, the solution is for each brand to provide a full roadmap of how their supply chain operates. By disclosing this information, YSL will be held accountable, lowering the chance of controversy and any media outbursts. In addition, YSL should choose suppliers who are accredited by Social Accountability International SA 8000 in terms of labor rights. This would ensure that the rights of employees in the supply chain are protected. Competitors such as Gucci have already acted upon this initiative, putting YSL behind, yet they still have the potential to become a leader in sustainable luxury fashion. As YSL has been known to practice unethical sourcing for their leather goods, use of exotic animal hair, skin, down, and fur, the turnaround this could lead to would leave a mark on fashion. YSL has the ability to make these initiatives while remaining tried and true to the empire they built by showing their willingness to adapt and evolve to the ever-changing industry of fashion, keeping their consumers loyal in addition to continuing to grow their base. At this time, we would now welcome any questions. Thank you all for listening.